elbow. Nice. Pack those shoulders, elbow to post. Nice. Keep that spine long. Here we go. Post to high pelvis. Nice. Lock that elbow out. Sweep into bend. And then there we go. Nice work. All right. Hey, everybody. How are you doing today? Thank you again for joining Terry and I for the next video in our Turkish Get-Up COVID-19 social distancing video series. Thank you for joining us. All right, we just stepped through press to elbow, elbow to post, post to high pelvis, and then into bend. And if you'll recall, our next step is half kneeling. So, without further ado, we will get right into half kneeling, and we're going to go to standing today as well. So we're going to finish the get up in ascending, in sort of the ascending steps that take you to standing. And of course, our remaining videos will talk about how we'll get back down to the floor, because there's some difficult and challenging but fun skills to learn there. All right, drop down into bend for me, my dear. So once you're in this position, which is bend after half kneeling, you've swept your leg, your hand is your eyes are gazing, your head is turned, and your eyes are gazing at your hand. By the way, in video 1, I talked about controlled articular rotations for the neck. Now you know why I mentioned it, because this is a challenging position to be in, requires your thoracic spine to be able to move and rotate, and to get your gaze here is challenging. So that's the reason for that. Once we get here in this position, our next step is to move into half kneeling. Now she started out in the exercise with her body facing in that direction, so she's going to move into half kneeling from bend. Go ahead. This requires a little pinwheel of the leg to the point where she now is looking straight forward. So this is the point in the get up where we change our gaze from our hand to looking straight forward. Now, Tara, you would say this is a good position to adjust if you need to. And one of the things about the get up that's so important to remember is each step of the way, you're moving in a way that's challenging stability and strength and mobility of the various joints. We're all unique. We're all built a little bit differently. We're all bringing a number of movement issues, perhaps, into the exercise. So I really want to encourage you to find comfortable spots along the way to adjust your position slightly. So in this instance, it would be perfectly fine to adjust the front leg, get yourself into a position that's more comfortable, more stable. Because here is where you're going to come from half kneeling into standing. So whenever you're ready, dear. Good. Excellent. And there you go. So again, you can see that right now. Terry's shoulder may be a little bit restricted. We don't want to overarch the back. We want to keep this arm nice and straight. A nice fist here. We're going to balance the shoe. Excellent. So let's quickly do this, if you would be so kind. We're going to grab the shoe. I'm going to have you start from the beginning. And we're going to go through all of the steps that we have laid out to this point in time. So again, to reiterate, make the little adjustments that you need to all along the way to get yourself set to move into the next step. As a reminder, I'll pick up the shoe and return it if you drop it. A reminder about the shoe, and I highly encourage you practice with it. There's no load here. Again, everything we're doing with this exercise is to prepare you to be able to do it with increasing loads. That's what this is all about, because that's when you can really build strength with this exercise. But with the shoe, because it's not attached to her fist, she needs to maintain vertical alignment of that arm, which is really important for stacking, right? Imagine pressing a very heavy weight overhead. If your arm's not straight, the chance of injury is going to increase significantly. So we want to get good musculoskeletal stacking, good alignment, make sure we've got a good base of support. And this is our test as we move through the exercise to maintain that good alignment. So whenever you're ready, we'll assume we've rolled from our side. We're now in a press position. We'll go to our elbow. Again, engage your back. Make sure you create good engagement of the core. Maintain some alignment. Pull that shoulder down and pack it. Excellent. Right into post from there, elbow to post. Our next step, now we're loading the hip into high pelvis, and then get yourself set and connected and into bend. Very good. And then, as you can see, your eyes right on the shoe, right into half kneeling from there. Adjust your position as you need to, get stable, and then come into standing. Fantastic. Oh, she's so good, isn't she? She really does this well. Now, she would admit, go ahead and turn to your audience. You can put the shoe down. You've been doing this exercise for a long time.
Yep.
Tell everybody when you first learned this, because I think one of the challenges for folks is they watch how well you do this and they go, why isn't it easier for me? Why can't I do it as well as Terry? Tell them why.
Because I've been doing it for years.
You've been doing it for years. You probably learned this, I think, when we were back in Old Saybrook.
Yes.
Which is probably going back to 2011, 2012,
Yeah.
is my guess.
Yeah.
Maybe even 2010, I don't know, but probably 2011 or 2012. So Tara's been doing this exercise now for a few years, and it kind of comes and goes in our routine, but it's always one of those staples that we focus on because it's a total body exercise. And what I hope as you're practicing this is you're learning more about your body. One of my passions as a coach is I want every athlete that I work with to become more aware of their body, their individual makeup, our morphology, what joints may be restricted. We learn where our core is, how our hips function, how our shoulders function. Many of us know more about our cars or our computers or our smartphones or our air conditioning systems than we do our own body. And our own body it's the most important thing. Our health is the most important thing. We're learning this now more than ever.
Yeah.
So as you're moving through this exercise, it's a fantastic assessment. Stop for a moment and pause and say, why is this challenging for me? Why am I losing balance? Why am I finding it difficult to keep my arm straight and vertical? This clues you into movement challenges, which if you work on individually, one at a time, will start to improve. So the sum of the parts mean that the whole becomes much better, much healthier, much greater. Go back to video 1 as well, because in there we talk specifically about shoulder mobility and stability. We talk a little bit about engaging the core, because that's what allows us to maintain a nice neutral position and hinge at our hip, which we'll talk about in more detail when we start to come down. There's one important step there where we really get the hip engaged via a hinge using and thinking of our hip joint as a skewer. When we move through our hips rather than our spine, good things happen, right? We strengthen and stabilize the hips and we take pressure and load off the spine. The single reason for low back pain in our culture is that too many of us move through our spines when we need to be moving through our hips. Okay, I'll stop there. You looked great, as always. You make it look easy. Keep the practice up. You're doing awesome, even though I can't see you, but I know it. I know you're doing great. I believe it, right? Now, what's that movie where he says, I believe, I believe? What movie is that? Do you remember?
The Wizard of Oz?
No.
I do believe, I do believe, I do believe.
Okay. Keep up the practice and we'll see you tomorrow with the next video where we'll talk about coming down and each of the elements and skills that are important to master that. Keep it up. You can do it.